Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Linkus7, and in today's video I'll be doing a commentary over the current world record for The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, which currently clocks in at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 18 seconds. Now, I'm on a kind of a quest to try and, I guess you can say, trying to make this game a little more easier to pick up. I'm going to be working on making a live tutorial for the 80% speedrun of this game, actually coming up this Friday. Should be up Friday or Saturday on this YouTube channel, as well as also making a live commentary to kind of just, instead of just, cutting up like a tutorial part, I'm just going to let the actual record play and I'm going to commentate over it. So you can hear with, some better commentary on what is going on and how the speedrun is actually working out and why we do stuff the way we do in full speed real time. So, first off, you might be noticing that this game is in Italian. Now, we always play this game in either Italian or Spanish version, and that is due to the fact of the text speed being a little bit faster in these versions. On opposite of how the original version got treated, they actually sped up every language of this game except for the Japanese version. So when we found this out, we actually started looking at the language lengths of all the available languages on the European and American version of the Wii U, and we found out that Italian was the fastest, with Spanish being a little bit slower. We still to this day not actually sure how much it is. It's only by a few seconds, but it's very hard to time because text speed is done by how fast you press the A and B button, and also some text boxes are faster in Italian, some are faster in Spanish, so it's a little bit uneven there. Another thing you will see right here is that when I'm going to side hop off of this tower, I'm going to be opening up a menu to invert the camera, because this game originally inverted the camera from what the original game had, and I personally am not a big fan of it, so I do invert my camera. Now what's coming up here is the first trick of the speedrun. This is definitely one of the harder tricks to get into, and I also have a tutorial up on my YouTube channel if you want some more in-depth explanation for this trick. But how this trick works is that you basically want to turn around frame by frame. Now, this was considered a task-only trick for the longest time. However, we did find a way around this. So if you pause frame perfectly continuously for about 2 minutes to 2 to 3 minutes, depending on how well you do it, you can basically start building up speed. So you can see that Link is actually going quite far forwards and backwards right here. And why this is that every time you turn around, you get 3 units of negative speed. Now, after even 2 frames, the game will neutralize this because it doesn't want to keep adding negative speed to, Link's character. However, if you frame perfectly turn around again, then the game will add another 3 units of negative speed, and then at 3 units of negative speed continuously if you do this frame perfectly. And they also never set a speed cap for how much speed you can build up if you go backwards, because they never intended you to build up a bunch of, backward speed, negative speed. So because of this, we can continuously keep pausing frame by frame to build up more and more negative speed. And I keep doing this, like I said, for about 2 minutes in an optimal attempt like this is. And at this point, I can see how Link is moving up and down. And I need to look out for a couple of things as well. I need to look up so I don't get hit by these docks too much, because that can make it tricky. And I also want to try and go up against like the cliff wall, I guess you can say, left of where the beach is. Because there's actually beach underneath there, but it's not close enough that I can stand on it. And if there's land under you, then you actually get an area feel, and if I touch the ground, then I'm going to lose all of my speed. But if I go into this corner right here, I don't touch the ground, but it's close enough that I'm considered to have ground underneath me, so it's going to actually fill up my air. Then from here, now I can tell that I'm getting a lot of speed, and I think that I have enough. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be holding in a positioning called Ess Positioning. Now this is a positioning that we refer to if you're holding that is right outside of the dead zone. So I do that to get away from the beach, and then I go into target camera. And if I go into target camera and hold perfectly up on analog stick, then what is going to happen is that Link is basically going to turn around. And if I have enough speed, that Link will in 1 frame turn around from where he's placed, I guess, in front of the camera to behind the camera, then the game is going to flip the camera automatically because it wants to face Link, right? I'm in target camera. And if I then have enough speed to do that again, then it's gonna turn around, it's gonna flip the camera, and this is gonna allow us to automatically turn around frame by frame without having to keep doing that pause buffering that I did earlier. So by doing so, I'm then allowing myself to basically keep turning around every frame, and this will build up enough speed to leave outside island early. Now, there's a couple of consequences. There's a couple of pros and cons for doing this. In the 80% speedrun, the cons we really don't care about that much. due to the huge time save. So this saves over 10 minutes, because if you do not know, normally you have to go through Outside Island, which normally will take you almost 15 minutes basically to go and get the spoils bag, which include going to get the sword, telescope, hero's clothes, then going up to the forest. Then after going up to the forest, you need to interact with the pirates. You get the shield, you leave, you get the spoils bag. Then you have to beat all of Forsaken Fortress 1. Then you need to talk to Coral for another cutscene, and then you need to sail your way over to Dragon Roost. And normally this takes about 30 minutes, and we're already here at 5-minute mark. Now, we do need to actually lose some time on some other parts due to the fact that we do skip a lot of necessary items. But this will end up still saving a lot of time on how the route will be progressed. You will also see right there that I did a pause to change to the Pro Controller, and that is just purely due to the fact that I prefer to play with the Pro Controller over the gamepad due to how uncomfortable playing with the gamepad is for my hands. So, anyways, now when I'm over here, I'm going to be making my way up to Dragon Roost, and I want to keep progressing my way over through Dragon Roost, and the main goal of going to Dragon Roost early, and the biggest benefit of getting to Dragon Roost early, is that we want to get the Grappling Hook early, because there's a glitch gonna come up later called item sliding. And item sliding is based on when you have a first-person item that you can also walk around with, which is why this does not work with a telescope, even though it is a first-person item. And the first-person item you can get is the Grappling Hook. There's a couple of items this will work with, such as the Grappling Hook, the boomerang, the bow and arrow, and the hook shot. Now, getting the boomerang is impossible without the Grappling Hook, because you cannot get in any consistent way on Wind Waker SD. You cannot in any consistent way make it into Forbidden Woods without the leaf, and to get the leaf you need the Grappling Hook. Second of all, getting bow and arrows requires you to beat both of these dungeons, so that's out of the question. And hookshot is only accessible in Wind Temple, and you cannot get to Wind Temple and get to the hookshot early in any known way, I should say. Maybe down the road we'll find a way, but currently there's no known way of doing that. So for now, the quickest way is basically to make our way through the first dungeon to get the Grappling Hook. So now, when we get making way here, I do not have any items, and thankfully there won't be any big consequences to this. I will have to actually make some really cool strats up on the way to basically make up for not having a sword. However, the shield was never really used in the speedrun of this part of the game anyways. The clothes does not make a gameplay difference at all, even though I'm supposed to have it, even though I'm using normal mode. And as well, on top of that, not having the telescope or the gossip stone or any of those items will not make any problems either. You might be wondering, if you do know this game very well, that how we're gonna pass the gossip stone texts inside of Dragon Roost itself, since I didn't actually get the Dragon Roost text. However, the gossip stone text. However, that is fine, because even if I never went to pick up the gossip stone in Forsaken Fortress, all of the cutscene triggers for the gossip stone is always gonna be there. So if I have it or not will not make an actual difference when it comes to playing this game. So now I'm just going to make my way over basically through all of these cutscenes, giving Mikami the letter, and then I'm just going to make my way over to get the empty bottle. So while I mentioned that time, I think I'm going to go over some other cool facts and like reasonings behind Outside Escape being implemented. So Outside Escape was a trick for the longest time that was considered task only, and I remember when this got implemented as well, a lot of people kept asking, like, you know, either A, why did we not do this earlier, or B, like, do you actually consider this, like, marathon safe at all? And I will definitely consider the fact that the Outside Escape definitely made this run a lot better. With the current old route, we used to have a trick called the door clip, which was RNG based, and it was extremely precise, which was also an hour into the entire run. So it definitely made runs very, very punishing, and it killed a lot of runs, and they could lose dozens of minutes an hour into the run. So having a hard trick in the beginning of the run is fine. And also, if you do tell that you have a little less speed than you're supposed to have, you can always keep pause buffering for an additional like half a minute to make up for that speed loss. So if you don't have a time restriction of, you know, like record attempts, and you just want to go for, you know, like a sub 110 or something, if you're a top runner, then you can definitely easily get around the manual super swim by just adding a few extra pauses. Another thing you will also notice that it will be a lot different, and why a lot of people were wondering why I didn't do this earlier, is due to the fact of the newly discovery of the camera lock. So we did not previously know that you could actually go into camera lock and hold up to swim in place, and when that was discovered, we almost immediately implemented the manual super swim, because before we did actually think that it required us to basically pause for 3 times the amount of speed. But now we can just get to 500 units of speed and then turn around in place. So that definitely helped the progression of making that a viable RTA strat. So I just now basically got around to getting the bottle, and now we can finally enter Dragon Roost Cavern, and there's going to be some really cool strats coming up. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we are basically going to have to use a lot of items around the dungeon to actually be creative enough to play through it without this sword. So obviously at this point you're never supposed to play swordless, and it's actually really cool. With the current route we actually do not have a sword until about 30-35 minutes into this entire run, so we're actually going to keep playing without a sword for a long time now. So I'm gonna explode both of these statues to be able to enter the dungeon, and from here is where the really crazy stuff going. So I'm gonna start trying to go over what I'm gonna be doing here. So first off, when I enter this dungeon here, I'm gonna be obviously just pushing these statues, and then we're gonna have 4 pots around us right here, and these pots are gonna be very useful. So killing an enemy entirely by using pots does take an enormous amount of time. However, at this point of the room, we only need the stick from them, and if you throw a pot at them, it knocks them over just like if it did like a jump slash. So because of that, I can just throw a pot into his face. I can then take his torch and lit both of the torches and get the small key from this chest. Now, after getting the small key, I'm going to go into the next room, and thankfully the barricades they made right here actually did not require you to use your sword. You can use any other items. So I'm actually going to be picking up this rock, and I'm going to basically throw it into the gals, and it's going to break. Another thing you're going to start seeing from this moment on is my rupee count. So I'm going to be trying to picking up rupees optimally throughout this dungeon and throughout the next remaining near future, because we actually will need to have to buy the sail to avoid a soft block for later. We actually do not have any sailing sections during this entirety of this run, which is really cool. But we sadly do still need to actually get the sail to avoid a soft lock, so we do need to get 80 rupees, but that is all of the rupees we need in the current any % speedrun of this game. So I'm just going to make my way through here, and here comes another room where I have to interact with an enemy. Basically, these gals that's coming up right here are too strong. These barricades, basically, they're too strong with a normal sword. As you can see, they're not semi-broken. So I need to use a strong sword like he holds. So I actually need to pick up one of those 2 pots right there, throw it in his face, and then I can use the sword to break both of these. However, that can actually be quite an annoyance when it comes to speedruns, because if he decides to instantly attack you back to back twice, then he can actually knock you over 2 times, and if he does that, you need to completely reload the room to get another chance to use the pots, because, well, they don't actually respawn, and if you hold them in your hand when he attacks you, then you do actually drop them, which breaks them. So I'm going to use a pot to break that bomb flower, and then I'm going to pick up another 5 rupee, putting my rupee count at 11. And then I'm going to be using another rock right here. Thankfully, I only need 1, because if you go really close, like right up against those planks, then he will actually spot you. So you don't actually have to break them to then go up close enough to him for him to notice you. So if you go up against them, he will notice you. He will jump out and break them for you, and then you can just throw the rock at him, saving you having to get another rock. Then from here, I'm going to try and climb this ladder, and this ladder sucks because I have no way of protecting myself, and that guy, I named him Frank, he can keep hitting you down. So you really pray that he does not keep hitting you down. Thankfully, I was not too unlucky here. I only got hit down once. Sometimes you can hit down 2 times. So right here, I'm going to be doing 2 small strats to save some time. Normally, you're supposed to sidle across that gap, and I actually do a roll to just jump over. That second one is a little more tricky. Right there I'm supposed to hang the ledge and then climb all the way on the side, and you might see that I climbed up inside of that one rock right there. And normally you actually have to if you want to do the normal strat and just roll past it, you can't just simply climb up, because I'm kind of inside of a rock. So because there's collision when I'm climbing up, when I climb up, the game will push me off the ledge. However, if you roll on the very first frame, where you get control over Link, then you're gonna get a roll before the game has had time to push you basically outside of the object. So I'm gonna roll at the same frame as the game is gonna push me out of that ledge, which is gonna allow me to get a jump out of it, and that's gonna allow me to reach that ledge, saving a few seconds. So there's a lot of small optimization like that I'll be doing all the way through this place, which you might not pick up as a normal casual just watching. Like for example, right here I'm gonna roll off of this ledge instead of climbing up, because it saves a few frames and animation speed. So there's a lot of really small stuff like that. Same with like the ledge I did earlier, just to kind of just try and get around the slowness that is Dragon Roost. So after I get the small key right here, I'm going to pick up another 5 rupee, just kind of to add to the rupee collection. So I basically just pick up that pod, throw it against the wall, and then I'm going to pick up the stick, lit it, and then I can enter this room. Now this next room coming up, there are 3 enemies I need to fight to unlock the next door, and I do not have a sword like I said. However, we do have a chance to get around this pretty easily. It's actually really funny. I never noticed this before I actually picked up the new strats right here, but there's actually a share right here, so you can pick up the share, you can throw it in his face to knock him over. You can pick up his sword, and then I'm going to be using the sword to kill both of these enemies right here. So I'm going to kill both of them with my sword, and I'm also going to try and pick up the rupees right there, because I do want 20 rupees. Then I'm going to bonk this wall to spawn him, and then I'm going to go back to pick up the sword, and I'm going to then kill him. And now we can actually make our way over to the mini boss room. So now we have access to the next room. And I really do find it really interesting how the Dragon Roost route came out, because it really adds another perspective, and it actually really made routing optimally interesting, because I think like I never really pay attention to the environment around dungeons and Dragon Roost and stuff like that. But ever since like we lost the sword, and you had to really use everything around the game to any resources you could find to make your way through this dungeon. I thought it added a really cool kind of concept, almost like a similar way of how Breath of the Wild has a lot of resources placed around the game. I really thought that it added a cool concept to the game. So I really do enjoy that part of the aspect of doing swordless Dragon Roost. Now, when I get to the mini-boss room right here, I do not still have the sword, but you probably have understood at this point that the main strats are to pick up a pod, a rock, or a similar instance like that, and then basically pick up their enemy sword and then use that to damage them. So I'm going to be doing that exact same thing for this boss.
Why would I make myself learn to enjoy a taste that I hate so much that I need to drink something to hide it? Like, I was just like, this is dumb. So I haven't touched one in months. Like, it was like, all friends were cool when you hit 18 and
So when I kill him right here, I'm really praying. You might have heard, if you've ever watched my live runs, to say, please pearl drop, please. So at this point I want 20 rupees, and I do also want to get a pearl drop right here, because I want 40 rupees leaving Dragon Roost. There is a backup around this that loses about 15 to 20 seconds. However, the most optimal way is to get that pearl drop, because if we get 40 rupees starting the run right here, I can then actually immediately go to Windfall, and I don't have to pick up any of the rupees on Outside Island, which is a little bit slow. So now I'll get the Grappling Hook, and now is where a lot of complex stuff is coming up. So I'm going to try my best to explain this, but it's going to go fast. So first off, I'm going to save and quit the game right here. Now, you might logically think that if I save and quit the game inside of a dungeon, I should be put back in the beginning of the dungeon, which is the intended way for the game to work. However, because the game has a bunch of internal flags to avoid you from basically sequence breaking, I have not hit those flags yet, and one of those flags are to progress past Outside Island. So because the game still thinks that I haven't progressed past Outside Island, no matter where in the game I save at this current moment of time, I will be put back onto Windfall Island, or sorry, Outside Island. So even though I save warped on Dragon Roost Cavern, I will still be put back to Outside Island, and I'm going to be using this a lot to get out of some places I'm not supposed to be at yet. And then after that, as you can see, I just did a glitch called Super Swimming. So how this is done is, finally now when I have the Grappling Hook, I have a way to Super Swim without actually having to pause buffer frame by frame. So if you have a first person item, like for example in this case for the any percent speedrun we'll be using the Grappling Hook, and you go into the mode by pressing the button for the item, and then you walk a direction on the analog stick, like let's just say for example forward. If I then pause the game and I hold slightly down, so basically Ess Positioning as we call it, refer to it as, in the opposite direction of the direction we're walking towards, the game will start building up a lot of speed. So you're going to start to build up a lot of speed, and this is going to create negative speed, which if you listen to earlier during a manual super swim, it does not actually cap negative speed. So by doing this, I'm going to get a lot of negative speed, and it's actually going to be so much that if I kept charging anywhere in the world for about 7 seconds, the value will be so high that the game would actually crash. So this is building up a lot of speed really quickly. And from loading up some speed by that item slide, I can then do a lot of things with that. I can have faster movement, but what I can also do is I can also tap ZL, and tapping ZL flings you to the left when you're in the Grappling Hook. However, if I look, for example, left into a wall, or right here I want to go left, so I tap ZL, I will fling to the left, but I won't lose my speed. I will keep my speed I built up in the item slide mode. So what I can do then is I can, for example, have movement like that, but I can also make my way into the water. And if I slowly inch my way into the water on, for example, a beach or a shore or something like that, and I don't ever be considered falling or reach another kind of animation that has a set amount of speed, then I will keep the speed and I can then super swim and do a bunch of other stuff on the ground. So that's how the super swimmings work in this game. So I basically super swim to Windfall, I rescue Tingle, and I on my way pick up some rupees, so I get 80 rupees. So now I bought the sail, and now I can finally avoid the soft lock. So after doing that, I'm going to item slide into the wall, and that wall basically clips you through Windfall Island. And it happens to be that the amount of speed you get when that wall stops to work happens to be the exact amount of speed when you're on that part of Windfall Island. So it's a quick way to get around to the front side of Windfall Island. And then I'm going to super swim to this submarine. Now, this submarine is going to act kind of strangely. So when I enter the submarine right here, it's going to basically throw me into jail. And you might be wondering, why is that? So to save memory, when the original game was built for the Nintendo GameCube, how they decided to make it, instead of making two different enemies for the guards and the normal Moblin enemy, Moblins that have lanterns, which is basically the same type of enemy as the guards in Forsaken Fortress 1, how it checks if it's supposed to act like a guard or an enemy is based on if you have a sword or not. Because the only instance where you would ever interact with a Moblin with a light that is not in an instance where you have a sword is only in Forsaken Fortress 1. So because of that, I'm going to go into that submarine, and they're going to look at me, they realize they don't have a sword, and it's going to throw me into jail. From there, I'm going to go inside of Forsaken Fortress 1, and I'm going to pick up the Gossip Stone. Now, the Gossip Stone is a completely, completely just, basically, I guess, unnecessary item, because the text boxes for the Gossip Stone is always placed anyways. However, it is very important when it comes to a flag internally in the game. So what the Gossip Stone triggers is the fact that I've made it past Pirate Ship 1, because normally you only pick up the Gossip Stone after leaving Pirate Ship 1. And Pirate Ship number 2 is where you get bombs. Pirate Ship number 1 is where you get the spoils bag. Now, what I can do is I can pick up the Gossip Stone, which is going to hit the internal flag that I'm done with the Pirate Ship 1. Then I can clip out of bounds of Forsaken Fortress. I can do an item slide backwards right here, go to the left by targeting, which will fling me to this rock all the way over here. Then I can enter the pirate ship, basically in an unintended way. And when I enter the pirate ship, the game is gonna look at if it should load pirate ship 1 or 2. It sees that I picked up the gossip stone, so it's like, oh, he's already beaten pirate ship number 1. So it's gonna load pirate ship number 2, even though I'm not on Windfall Island. And that is gonna actually trigger the pirate ship that's gonna have the bombs in it. So I can now actually go and get bombs early, which is gonna be super useful in the current speedrun. And it's also currently necessary to have bombs to beat this game in the RTA setting. So after now going in here, I'm gonna talk with him and I'm gonna do the ropes. Now, they're kind of famous for being pretty bad in every Zelda game, and that is still true to the Wind Waker HD. It is still very glitchy and they're still pretty awful when it comes to the ropes. So thankfully they didn't troll me too much, but I did actually get a grab too high up right here in my run, so I actually did go for a safe strat right here, which lost a little bit of time, but it was not a bad backup. It did not fall down at least.
Nigel, do you have franker faces and better Twitch TV and like add-ons like that? So you can click on names to get more infos? You do? Alright, because all my mods are sleeping, I'll temporarily actually mod you, I'll remove it after, I'm gonna give you a heads up now, I'm gonna remove it after the stream.
Now, after picking up the bombs right here, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be saving and quitting again, and because I still haven't hit the flags for basically making it so I've actually beaten Outside Island, the game is still gonna put me at Outside Island, which is really convenient to get past to the to get back to the overworld after getting bombs. So the game is gonna put me back to the overworld, and from here I'm just gonna be doing another item slide to get to the beach, and then I'm gonna do an item slide to get an item slide super sim going. Now, after doing this, I'm gonna be super swimming to an island called Thorn Fairy Isle. And the point of this is later in the game, I'm going to be picking up the light arrows, and it is very crucial to actually have usable arrows for that. So I'm going to be doing a clip to get into Thorn Fairy early. So this is actually, as you can see on my reaction, I did not expect that to be that fast. So normally this is a very precise clip, and it is a very difficult trick to do. So what you basically have to do is you need to go back to the back side of the Thorn Fairy Isle, and then I need to get an item slide going, and I need to have the exact amount of speed that I can clip through the wall, but not too much, because if I have too much, I will clip on the other side of the island, but if I have too little, I won't clip through the wall. So I need exactly the amount of speed to basically clip through the wall and then fall on the next frame, which is going to reset my speed. So by doing that right there, I can then clip out of bounds and enter the loading zone, and I can get the quiver upgrade early, even though I do not have bow and arrow. Then from there, I can just item slide and clip out of bounds to get back into bounds, and then I can super swim my way over to Forest Haven.
A little bit of a bad speed, but that's fine. How big of a gold was that? 5 seconds. And I got a 4-second. Guys, we have almost improved our sum of fast by 10 seconds in one run.
So now when I'm back at Forest Haven, you will also notice, just like the Wind Waker cutscene, that Coral still is not spawned into the overworld. So it is kind of weird Link is talking to nobody. But it doesn't thankfully affect the cutscene at all. So I can just make my way up here, and then I'm going to be doing an item slot against this wall. And after getting a little bit of speed, I'm going to hold fully up an analog stick. And that will allow me to clip and actually jump out of my item slide to clip underneath Forest Haven. And then I'm just going to be swimming right here into the loading zone. And how this works is if you are in a base of water and there's water underneath you and there's no collision in between you or where the water source is, the game is going to put you back to the highest, basically water source point, probably to avoid you from going like and clipping underneath the ocean, I'm guessing. So due to that, it's going to put me up at the higher water source, and where the water is, that's actually right where the loading zone is. So it's going to pop me up to the water, put me into the loading zone, and it's going to load where the decay tree is. And right here, I still don't have a sword, so I'm gonna do a strat right here where I pull out a bomb, then I'm immediately gonna bonk. I'm gonna take out a bomb, I'm gonna place it out right there, and I'm gonna stand in the middle, and then I'm gonna take out a bomb just as the first one is about to explode. And that gets a triple explosion, which is gonna damage them a lot, and it almost consistently, almost always basically, gets a one cycle onto them. And from there, I can then get the cutscene for the Decatry. So I'm gonna let some of the audio play from the stream here.
It wasn't even just like, oh, I'm just gonna hold down ESS for the lulz. Holy crap, dude. Two golds in one run, dude. Well, I have one thing to tell you guys, though, now. By the way, can I first off just appreciate the fact that I am plus 14 seconds, my sum of best 30 minutes in the run. In average, every 2 minutes, I've lost half a second. That is ridiculous. Absolutely insane. Number two, we now have a 1:30 sum of best. 1 hour and then 30 seconds sum of best. So we're actually getting really close to sub 1 hour and 30 seconds sum of best.
Alright, so now after the Decatry cutscene, I'm just going to make up these bulbs, and this is also one of the reasonings why we do need the grappling hook before we go to Decaleaf. So this is one little platform right here to basically just make sure you did not sequence break. You need to grapple this little thing, and sadly there's no way because it's higher and it's pretty far away, so there's no way to get to it, and you can't enter bulbs if you're in a jump slash or anything either. Another thing I'm going to do here is something called bulb skip, and it might look really spoopy. So basically the collision for this platform extends pretty far out, so with a really precise angle you can just barely land on top of the platform for the top little platform where the leaf is. And if you have a perfect angle and you don't have really bad luck so it swings away from you, then you can make it up. And that's one of kind of the things where it's not too difficult when you learn the angle, but it does only save like 5 seconds and it loses 45 seconds if you miss it. So there has been runs where I haven't missed that and it's really not fun. So once again, after I get the DQ leaf, I'm going to save and quit, and that's going to put me back to Outside Island. And then from here, I'm finally now going to actually go and get the sword, because I basically have every item I need right now to make it to Ganon's Tower to beat the game. I have the leaf, and another benefit of having the leaf is now I have magic, which is very crucial. So I now not just have leaf, but I also have magic. I have an item I can use item slides with. I have a bomb, which is an explosion, and it can also damage me. So, and they also have a quiver upgrade. So I'm going to go to this submarine again, and they're going to spot me, and it's going to throw me into jail once again. And from here, this time, instead of like going to get bombs in the Gossip Stone like I did the first time, what I'm going to be doing at Forsaken Fortress this time is I'm actually going to try and beat Forsaken Fortress, because there's a couple of benefits of beating Forsaken Fortress right here. Number one is, of course, I actually do get the sword. So you might know, in a casual perspective, you already have the sword when you get to Forsaken Fortress 1. And then when you get put to Forsaken Fortress with the barrel, you're going to splash onto the wall, and it's going to drop the sword onto the ground. And now, when you do it in a speedrun like this, what's going to happen instead is that you're actually going to be just going here without actually going through the barrel cutscene, although that is fine because the sword is always placed onto Forsaken Fortress. So I'm gonna get up right here, I'm gonna turn around, and I'm gonna do an item slide into this corner. Gonna press ZL to fling to the left, and I'm actually gonna be put back right at the other side of Forsaken Fortress because I'm high enough. And right here, I can actually climb up this ladder, and this is basically like the last section of Forsaken Fortress. So when I'm right here, I can then leap over this gap. Now, I still haven't gotten actually the spotlight right here for making it over to the last platform. However, if I item slide, I can get past it in less than a frame, so I don't get caught. And then from there, I can grapple him. And grappling him is going to skip a little bit of a cutscene right there. Normally, when you go up right here, you're going to get an animation of Link basically being excited for seeing the sword. And after that animation happens, then the game is going to play another animation of the guard actually spotting you because the sound you're making. And he's gonna raise the spikes behind you. However, if you interact with him by, for example, grappling hooking him before you enter that cutscene trigger, the game is gonna like stop checking for basically you entering the first trigger because you've already interacted with him. And due to that, I can skip it and save a few seconds. Now, from here, I'm going to be watching this cutscene. There's not too much going on. There is some complex stuff coming up after this cutscene, so I'm going to be back with the commentary in the end of this cutscene explaining some stuff. Where are you now that I need you? I just thought about something. Okay, cool. Alright, so we're almost done with the cutscene, and there's a couple of things I want to go over before I can control over Link. So you might be wondering why we specifically wait for this moment to beat Forsaken Fortress. So number one, you see right now that we switch over quickly just to Ganon being like in flames right here and stuff, and you might see right now that it flicks right back and there's like no loading zone, no loading zone, anything in between right here. How the game does this to preserve memory is that the game has a bunch of different layers, and these layers basically allows multiple things and different things to be placed onto the same map, so it doesn't have to have a specific island for this cutscene and then a specific one for the normal windfall. So why this is very useful and why it's so useful to be basically Forsaken Fortress is number one, now King of Red Lions is placed onto the overworld, which is crucial because otherwise the game will crash later when we get down to Hyrule 2, because like the cutscene is trying to play and Coral is not here. Number two, this text right here is the reasoning we have the sail, because otherwise this text would be infinite because he keeps telling you to go and get the sail. But anyways, now we basically are done with the cutscene. We're gonna go over here and we're gonna do a super swim over to Forsaken Fortress. Now, going to Forsaken Fortress, this is why now it's so useful to beat Forsaken Fortress right now. So you might see when we get right here now that it might be, you can see right now that it's day right now at Forsaken Fortress. So it's completely day right now. The music is really weird. There's no lights. The spikes, which normally would be here, are not here. There are no mini blends. There are no enemies. and it's just really weird. The guard lights on the top of the towers are non-existent. The light effects outside of the windows are not there. Nothing is almost placed out of here, and this is due to the reasoning that we super swam from Windfall Island without entering a single loading zone or reloading the game. And because of that, then the game won't actually go back to the original layer that it's supposed to be. And on this specific layer I'm still on, which is the cutscene layer, the door is not loaded either. So because nothing is loaded in Forsaken Fortress, because normally you never are able to get anywhere on this specific layer, because the developers has made it basically so when you enter any loading zone, which you have to a Windfall, it will just go back to the original, layer when it reloads the map. However, because we can super swim, we can get there without changing the layer, and you're never supposed to be playing the game on this specific layer on Forsaken Fortress. This layer does not load all the properties of Forsaken Fortress, which means that we can simply just enter the loading zone. And entering this cutscene right here is super crucial, because internally in the game, when you watch this cutscene right here, the game will change Link's animation set from 1 to 2. So another thing to kind of avoid you from sequence breaking the game, and also just how they made the cutscenes work in general, is that they made it so the game has 2 animation sets. Animations for early game and end game. And the event that changes it is this cutscene right here. So if I would just go from Hyrule 1 to try and go to Puppet Ganon, my game would crash. Same with just going to Ganon. So I need to watch this to actually trigger the Phantom Ganon and, Puppet Ganon and all of the cutscenes I want to watch later. So this is very crucial to watch. Another thing you might be noticing that's a little bit weird is that one of the pirates are actually not here. Gonzo is actually invisible, and it's not really actually, it doesn't make a difference to the run, except that it's a little bit funny to see the pirate, the girls right there just, be carried out, flying, or that, Tetra is talking to an invisible pirate. That is just because of the fact that, just like King of Red Lions, Gonzo was never spawned onto the overworld and into the game, because we never had to interact with actually getting the pirates to Windfall Island, Outside Island in the beginning of the game. So I'm not sure why the other pirates actually do spawn in, but Gonzo specifically doesn't. It's probably something to do with how he is placed into the original cutscene. I'm 100% sure on that. But anyway, so you might see now that he picks up Ariel and she kind of just flies away with her superpowers. So bye-bye Gonzo. So now we're gonna get the Helmrock fight. Now, we actually cannot fight Helmrock even if we wanted to, because we do not have the Skull Hammer, which means we can't get past the first phase. And the second phase requires, for the first part of it as well, the Skull Hammer. So we don't have the Skull Hammer. There's no way to get it without the Master Sword, because you cannot damage or attack Phantom Ganon at all without the Master Sword, which is super crucial. So, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a item slide up of this tower right now, and I'm going to just basically do a thing called Helmrock skip. So getting to the top right here, if you have a lot of speed, you can get behind Helmrock before he spawns down on the ground. And from here I can climb up this ledge, and if I roll on the very first frame, bam, I can clip underneath. So normally the game will push you back in a bounce. However, if you roll in the first frame, you'll be so far out of bounds on the frame where the game would push you out of bounds that you're still not considered to be inside of the ledge, or I guess the collision, but you're just inside of the wall, and then the game won't actually push you in a bounce again. And from there I can crawl underneath the railing, jump up on the railing, walk around the arena, and then I can jump in a bounce behind the spikes where the end of the fight would be. And then I can just item slide up my way to the tower and enter this cutscene. Now this cutscene and how cutscenes in general are actually done in this game is pretty interesting. So you might see right now, if you pay attention to Link, that Link has his green outfit, we have the hero shield, and we have the Master Sword. You might know that we have the hero sword, which not the Master Sword. We don't have a shield, and we don't have the tunic. So the game, the cutscenes in this game is actually not they're not recorded and it's just playing an MP4 file for all of these. They're actually being played in the game. So due to that, the game actually basically force equips a shield onto Link's R button, a Master Sword onto Link's B button, and for some reason in this specific cutscene it also applies the tunic onto it. I don't really know why it's specifically a tunic, but it does care about equipping all of that. Now, the game won't actually, like, we won't actually keep this tunic outside of this cutscene. However, because it force equipped the Master Sword onto her B button and the shield, and they never bothered to, like, make it temporary, because normally how we just do it is, I mean, if it gives you a Master Sword and you have a Master Sword, it won't matter for the casual, you know, you just have the same item you went into the cutscene with. However, because we did a sequence break and we don't have these items yet, it's very useful, because now we have the hero's shield and we have the Master Sword. And this is also why early Master Sword even works in the first place. So this is the glitch called early Master Sword, and this is the biggest reasoning why this route even works and why any percent is in way slower, because you have to have the Master Sword to even damage Phantom Ganon in the first place. You cannot damage Phantom Ganon without the Master Sword. It cannot be done with any other item, or any other sword, sorry, except for the Master Sword. And you cannot go and pick up the Master Sword in Hyrule 2 right now, because I just changed my animation set layer to endgame cutscenes. So even if I did a glitch to get around the actual cutscene for Tetra becoming Zelda, I would still crash going into the Master Sword, picking up the Master Sword cutscene. So I can't get the Master Sword regularly, which means that normally if I didn't get the Master Sword right here, I would need to beat all of the first 2 dungeons, go to Tower of the Gods, and go down to Hyrule 1 regularly to then pick up the Master Sword. So it'd be very slow. You would basically do like barrier skip around, like, and go to the end game like around the 1.5 2 hour mark instead of the 45-minute mark. You might also notice right here that the Dragon Valoo is just kind of flying there and sitting there in midair, and that is because of the fact that this is actually the map where you race Tower of the Gods. And because I never raced Tower of the Gods, and this is, like I said, playing like in the game itself, it's basically is going to be invisible and not actually there, so it's just going to look like he's standing in midair, because the game, you know, I guess expects that you're supposed to have Tower of the Gods raced. So from there, it's going to be put down to Hyrule right now.
Alright, let's get those Frankers in the chat. Let's do this. Let's show the world what we got. Let's get a good barrier skip. I'm ready. Azer, look at that Wind Waker split and tell me you're not.
Alright, so now after I have the text done with the Tetra and the boat, I'm going to be doing a series of glitches right here, and this is very complex. So, this is what basically was the key to making the speedrun actually so short, and what made the speedrun go from a 4-hour to a 1-hour speedrun. So at first we went item slide to clip through the Hyrule, which is nothing too special. Now is what's coming up is the big part though. So, I'm gonna pull out my Wind Waker to cancel the knockback part of the barrier, and that is done by, if I take out the Wind Waker on my frame where my damage of an ability frame ends, I'm gonna basically be immune to getting knocked back by the barrier as long as I stay behind the barrier. And then I'm going to line myself up very precisely with a texture in the sky to see what value I have for my angle. And if I get a very precise angle, I can then do an item slide and then basically tap ZL, but also make my speed positive because I need to go to the right instead of to the left. And then going basically into the barrier on the right, if I have the perfect angle, I'm going to be put into a positioning where the 2 basically walls, the invisible walls behind the knockback part of the barrier meet up. And if you're in a very specific spot and you have enough speed to go through the barrier in 1 frame or less, then the game will fail to check its collision and you can just clip through the barrier. And that was one of the most sought after glitches for the longest time. And that is what saves super much time in the speedrun and what skips actually basically all of the dungeons in the speedrun and the Triforce collecting part. So that glitch alone saves over 2 hours in the current speedrun, and it is definitely one of the biggest skips and glitches in any Zelda speedrun, for sure. Another thing that I did right there is something called trial skip. So I basically do an item slide to get on top of that little wall right there, and from the door frame right there, I'm going to take out a bomb, and I'm going to grab in between the bomb and Link. And if I go against the bomb as early as I can when I have control over Link again after starting to grab the ledge, then I'm going to be going towards the bomb, and the game doesn't want me to go inside of an object or out of bounds, so it's going to push me away from the bomb. Now, being put away from the bomb will actually push me towards the wall, so it's going to, with enough force, push me through the wall, which is going to clip me out of bounds. And then from there, I can just leave over to the loading zone basically leaving the trials. And that will allow me to then skip the entire trials trial, which is also very important because I don't have the items required to beat them. And from there, I'm making my way through the Phantom Ganon maze. And the maze for Phantom Ganon is always the same. It's always down, left, up, left, right, up. So because I remember the maze order in my head, I'm going to get to the last room. And then right there, there's an RNG part. You pray for him to spawn on the ground. He can either give you a red ball, blue ball, or spawning on the ground. And spawning on the ground is fastest, but thankfully even the worst RNG spawn there only loses 8 seconds, so it's not too bad. From there, I'm going to pick up the light arrows, and this was the entire reason why we got the quiver upgrade in the first place. So thanks to the fact that I have the quiver upgrade, I'm going to be having 60 arrows right now, and you might wonder why I even bother not just going with 30. But because I skipped getting the bow and Tower of the Gods, I never received the original 30 quiver upgrade. So if I get the light arrows, it's going to add the bow with the elements onto my inventory, but it's not going to add any quiver upgrade like it normally would in Tower of the Gods. So it's going to show that I have 0 arrows with my bow. So because of that, we do need to actually get a quiver upgrade. And from there, I'm going to be basically killing off the last Phantom Ganon, and then I'm going to be item sliding my way up these stairs, killing all of the enemies as quickly as I can. Just item sliding, killing them, item sliding, killing them. And then when I get to the end right here, I'm going to try and pick up some magic, because coming up is Puppet Ganon. And Puppet Ganon is definitely one of the hardest bosses in the game, and it is definitely one of the biggest run killers, and probably where I lost the most amount of time in this speedrun right here. It is very, very, very difficult. I'm quite excited, and I do some of my regular stream memes, so I'm going to let the audio play for this cutscene, and then I'll get back to you when the fight starts. I didn't just for the first time in my life get sub 50 in this run. I got sub 50 by 22 seconds. I won't right now, I really don't want to focus too much on my phone right now. I tried. I'm gonna focus now instead. But anyways, so Puppet Ganon is coming up. Now, we need to show Puppet Ganon that who is the boss? We are the boss, alright? So let's get some freaking Linkus in the chat to show this boss that who is the boss? We are the boss. So we're taking the Swedish sniper out of the bag, out on the table, and we'll show this murder freaking Puppet Ganon that who is the boss? We are the boss. So go home, PG, alright? Alright, so now with the PG cutscene almost done, with the memes out of the way, the Linkus Reese, dude, the best emote ever, and the Swedish sniper memes out of the way, the Puppet Ganon fight is coming up. So normally you would fight Puppet Ganon with the boomerang. So normally what a caster would do is they would take the boomerang, they would cut down the cords for the first phase, and then they would shoot the tail when the tail is just laying on the ground. Now we do not have the boomerang, and also that strat is slow. So what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using snipes. So I'm going to be first trying to shoot him right there when his tail starts to swing. And then from here, I'm going to try and just time and shoot, as you can see, timing, to shoot when the tail is basically behind him. So I try and time shooting the tail when it's behind him. It's quite difficult, and it also, his movement is RNG based. So for example, in that first part, he kept turning around and like walking around, so it was quite difficult to do. Thankfully, to make up for basically missing a lot of shots, he did drop magic right there by hitting it with his tail. So that was actually not too bad. So I go and pick up that magic right there, and from there I'm done with the first phase, because you only need to hit him 3 times. Now, after hitting him 3 times, I will be going on to the second phase. The second phase is basically a spider phase. And there is a strat you can do here. You might hear me mention it quite a lot, called Crypt Shot, named by Cryptech, who's the one that found it. And the strat for that is that you shoot the first arrow and then you try and hold a perfect uplift angle. And if you shoot on a specific frame, you can actually hit him while he's going up into the air. You can see that I tried right there, but I missed. It was a bit too low down. Sadly, the analog sticks on the Pro controller and the Wii U gamepad does not have any notches. So it makes it quite difficult to actually get a perfect angle for aiming. But sadly, I did miss it both times here, but that's fine still. Thankfully, I did get magic from these keys, which is also why we don't want to take more damage yet, because if you take more damage than under 2 hearts or less, then the keys will favor heart drops, because it will try and help you out a bit. So right here, I changed the light arrows. I got hit by him, and if you get hit by him landing, it takes a full heart of damage. So it's going to take a full heart of damage on me, and then thanks to the full heart of damage, I'm going to be being only at 1.5 heart right now. So I'm going to first try and do a snipe right here on the first ball. Sadly, I did miss. Sadly, like I said, the Phantom NFI was probably the worst out of my, my run. And then I'm going to take out a bomb, and I'm going to wait for him to go into me. And when he hits me with the bomb, it's going to, one, damage me. And then second of all, it's going to stun him, because it basically counts as, you know, that I threw a bomb on him. Sadly, this time right here, he kept trolling me a bunch, and I went really safe, because I didn't want to risk this run. But it ended up being fine, and I ended up having half a heart left after this boss fight, which is not too bad. And the main goal of what I want to accomplish during this fight, not just actually damaging him and killing him, but I also want to make sure that I try and have some magic left after this fight. And on top of not just having magic left, I also do want to try and have some hearts left. And when I say some, I mean 1/4 of a heart, because what is coming up now is a glitch called a zombie hover. And how a zombie hover works is that it basically is a glitch that allows you to gain height while you're dead by taking your health down to 0 health. And when you're at 0 health, when Link stands up, you will have a short amount of time where you can perform an input before the game actually basically gives you the game over screen. And normally this was the point where the game would revive you if you had a fairy in your bottle. However, we don't have a fairy, and we don't want a fairy, because if we have a fairy, then the game would heal us right there. But if you do not have a fairy, you can actually time a jump slash. So you will accomplish a jump slash, and then the game is gonna know that you're dead, so it's gonna cancel your jump slash. And after doing that, because I'm in midair, I can do a midair jump slash by pressing B. And if I continuously mash B really quickly, then I can keep gaining height. And this will allow me to gain enough height to make it to the final platform, because getting to the final platform requires you to have a hook shot, and I do not have that. However, when you land on the ground, you will always die in the first frame, and I can't have any like bottled items, like a fairy, because that would heal me before. So I'm going to be using something called a morph hover, which is a newly discovered trick that allows you to consistently do the zombie hover. So I'm going to be going up to this morph, and I'm going to try and do a slash with the sword right as he attaches to me. And then I roll, and I pray that he goes into a good direction, which is sadly luck, but thankfully, like, this can only lose like up to, I guess, like a minute or two. So you're always guaranteed to get this working, always. Instead of like the fairy hover, which, if you don't remember, an old ESA run I did, for example, I actually couldn't finish run after 30 minutes. So this is thankfully a consistent way of finally actually finishing runs. So I roll off, and then I'm going to leave him to get on top of this platform. And I do actually mess up a little bit right here, because I'm really nervous, and I do tap one time too much right here, a little bit too much. However, well, I have a little bit of timer to get him up again. I should explain something. So I know like this idea was brought up right in the beginning, and a lot of people asked as well, like, why did you not do this? Like, why did you do, like, you know, fairy hover for such a long time instead of morph hover? And the reasoning why it took so long to find this is because of the fact that it's not just actually blowing him up on this platform. You might see in the beginning what I was doing is I kept using my sword to slash the Morth. So what I need to do is I need to slash my sword to kill the Morth on the same frame that it grabs onto me, because the only way a Morth can drop a heart is by getting killed by the sword. So I have to make sure that I slash him with the sword and then he grabs onto me on the same frame. And then when I get up the Morph up on this platform and I shoot him with the arrow, the game will remember that I actually did slash it with the sword, and it counted the game counted that I actually killed him with the Master Sword. And thanks to that, it will still drop the heart, because if I just shot it with the arrow, it would not drop any items. That's just how the Morphs work. So that is why it took so long to find, because I had to find that glitch where the Morph attaches to you on the same frame that you slash it with the sword. But thanks to that discovery, we were able to make now Morph ever consistent. So I get him on the ledge of that platform, I then shoot him with an arrow, he will drop a heart thanks to the glitch I did earlier with the Master Sword. Then I'm zombie hovering up to the end of the platform, I land on the heart, and then I get into the Ganon cutscene. Now, I will let the rest of the audio play out right here. I am quite excited, and I'm also really nervous because at this point I've been streaming for 13 hours because I was doing a marathon to try and go for the record. Yeah, I'm gonna let the audio play and just let it speak for itself for the last fight. So I need to stay calm now because I know that I can get this. So I'm just gonna stay calm and I'm just gonna do what I've practiced. It's not hard. All I have to do is do a jump, spin attack, spin attack, spin attack, walk to Zelda, get shielded, walk into the barrier. All I have to do for first. We can do this. We can do this. I'm sorry for the pep talk. It actually helps me though. I can do this. Alright. I can do this. I'm gonna mute my headset and tab down chat quickly on my alerts for this fight. I will edit these splits. I will remove some of the time loss on Fairy Hover and Pup again and then move it back to the beginning of the run. I do not want to run against these splits. I would move it around a bit. Will you sit down? Alright, everybody. Are you guys ready to get this back? Everybody, let's get those Linkus Hughes in the chat. Let's go. Let's get the one heart Ganon fight. All I have to do is the one heart Ganon fight. Let's get everybody to post Linkus Hughes in the chat. Everybody. Alright, all I have to do is the one heart Ganon fight here. All I have to do is the one heart Ganon fight. Alright, I can do this. I've done this multiple times. We can do this. We do not have to be nervous. There's a chance we could die here, but I don't think that will happen. I know we can do this. We did this last run. We've done the other runs. I know we can do this. We have everything it takes in the world. So let's just get it out of the way now. Alright. Sounds good. I can do this. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Alright, let's go. Alright.
I did it. I fucking did it, dude. I did it after 14 hours of it. I did it. I did it.
And there it is, my friends. The new Wind Waker HD 80% world record set on March 9th on 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 18 seconds. Now, this record has now been standing for about a week's time, and it can definitely still be improved, but as you can see, this run was still very good, and I'm still very happy about it. But do I think it will be improved on? Absolutely. There's always time for improvement in speedruns, and you could see how the ending definitely had some mistakes. Now, for the future, I do want to try and optimize the 80% time as well as 100%. I've been working very hard for the past few months to optimize this game. And I also plan on trying to really push hard for updating all of my resources out there, for making it easier for people to pick up this game and grow in this community. Most of the commentaries and also for the tutorials I was making was before barrier skip, and they were in the end of 2016, early 2017. Which is before barrier skip, and a lot of crazy stuff has been found ever since. So that's why I decided to make this tutorial, to kind of just get the word out and just kind of, you know, try and explain a little more in depth about the run. As you know, I try and always explain stuff when I'm streaming, but for this specific world record, I've been streaming for 13 hours, so I was really tired. It's hard for me to do a lot of commentary, so I decided to instead just do a post commentary, kind of just going over it. That's why it took a little bit longer for it to get uploaded to YouTube, even though it's been a highlight on Twitch for a few days. And like I said, I do plan on doing a live tutorial for Wind Waker HD 80%, which will probably take 2 to 3 hours, and I will live stream it on Friday this week when this video comes up. And if you're watching this later, on a later time on YouTube, then I will have it in the description of this video, because I will be uploading that to YouTube as well. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you watched all the way through, I hope you enjoyed. I went into really much detail on as much as I could, so I really do hope that you did enjoy this video. And without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm excited to bring you guys more speedruns in the future. Peace.
Look at this. Look at my